The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
And since John Riggins has the intro there, let's keep it going with a Redskins theme and the great defensive coordinator Richie Pettibone, who unfortunately suffered through an awful season in his one season as head coach in 1993 when they went 4-12. Richie would like to say, if we didn't have bad luck, we wouldn't have any luck at all. Thus, the Washington Wizards.
Picking sixth. The Washington Wizards.
As low as they could go, that's how low they went last night in the draft lottery, despite having the second worst record in the NBA. And so it goes for the Washington Wizards in one of the really bad nights we've had in Washington, D.C. sports history. Maybe not the worst, but wasn't good. Capitals lost again. They're on the brink of being eliminated in the playoffs, and the Nationals, riding a 5-game losing streak, they had tied it up in the ninth against the Braves, but were walked off 4-3. So not a great day for Washington recaps. And, well, I guess the weather kind of says it all. It's supposed to rain throughout the day. Oh. Let's begin with the lottery. And there was a period of time where they would just throw all the non-playoff teams into a hat, essentially, or a ping pong ball hopper, and whoever came out with the top pick got the top pick. Didn't matter what your record was, and even if you had the record that was next best to being in the playoffs, you could still get number one, and if you had the worst record in the league, you could still get, at that time when it started 40 years ago, the seventh pick overall, which I think was the case with the Golden State Warriors when the Knicks won, and 40 years later, there is still this controversy over the league stacking the odds for the Knicks, playing games with a bent envelope, a frozen envelope, you name it. There are conspiracies that will not go away to this day, that the league wanted to make sure that Patrick Ewing, who is clearly the number one player coming out of college, out of Georgetown, 1985, he'd taken them to 3 finals, won a national championship, that he was going to turn around the fortunes of the New York Knicks, who at that point had not won a championship in 12 years. Kind of crazy to think it's been 52 years since they won their last title. But the figuring then was, hey, we get Ewing to New York, and the Knicks start to win championships, and the league really benefits from that. And I think there still is a case to be made that a good team in New York helps the league. But as we saw, Ewing got the Knicks to the finals a couple of times, didn't win a championship, mainly because a guy named Michael Jordan had come in the league a year earlier. And to this day, the Knicks are still looking for their first title. So whether there was rigging or not, there is controversy from last night in that the Dallas Mavericks, who just barely missed out on the playoffs and had a 1.8% chance of getting the number one pick, got the number one pick in a year where you've got apparently that guy. We don't know how Cooper Flagg is going to work out, but he is said to be a generational player, and it's presumed that the Dallas Mavericks with the number one pick will take him. Now, here's something that came out of last night, and we'll get to the Wizards' reaction to falling to number 6 in a moment here. Rick Welts, longtime executive in the NBA. He was with Golden State for many, many years, and now he's with the Dallas Mavericks. And this is kind of a curious comment from someone who's been in the league that long. You know, maybe he thinks he's tweaking the process or tweaking those who think there's a conspiracy. But he said, I'm the only person who was in this room 40 years ago. I was in charge of the NBA draft lottery 40 years ago when Patrick Ewing won. I've been doing conspiracy theory stories ever since. This is very surreal personally. Now, why would you bring conspiracy into this when you land with the number one pick? That's kind of an odd thing to say. And look, the Dallas Mavericks have been dragged through the mud for the Luka trade, trading him for Anthony Davis. And, it's a superstar in his prime at 25. Why do you do that? Well, now looks like you're in really good shape with Cooper Flagg, who does a lot of good things like Luka and is in shape, unlike Luka. And is even younger. He's only, he's 19 years old. 19 when he comes into the NBA. So, Luka's 26 now. So it looks like, whatever you did and all the criticism that you took for making this deal, looks like it's going to pay off for you. But he said that just looking at the potential roster and thinking about what could happen next season, it's a reversal of fortunes that's really unimaginable. And, Nico Harrison, the GM, they had to escort fans out of the arena for holding up signs to fire him. Now you got to think with Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis and now Cooper Flagg, you're right in the mix in the West. You're right there with, Minnesota, and maybe you get a healthy Steph for one more run next year, and, a couple of the other teams from the West that might be factors next year. You might be actually Denver, probably not still out of it. You might be back in it next year with that trio for an organization that was just clobbered. And if you want to do conspiracy theories, this is the NBA saying, hey, leave the Dallas Mavericks alone. We're going to give them Cooper Flagg. Believe those conspiracies if you want. There's been a lot of chatter and nothing really proven over the years to make it so. All right, Will Dawkins, part of the process for the Wizards. They're not calling it that, but even if they were to get Cooper Flagg, it seems pretty certain that they'll be back in the lottery next year. This would probably cement that. And, they hope that they get a complimentary player. You don't know what you're going to get at 6. Steph was 7. So, could be that they get lucky and they wind up with a player who's better than projected. But this was rationale as the envelope or the ping pong ball, whatever you want to call it, the card that was turned over, saying, in fact, that this was going to happen.
Picking 6, the Washington Wizards.
Yeah, select. Yeah, picking 6, the Washington Wizards. Who they select, we'll see. This is Dawkins on the rationale.
We started the day with 0, and we walked away with 6, so that's the mindset we have going in. So we gained the 6th pick this year, and we also have 18, so time to get back to work with our scouts.
Okay, but you were guaranteed 6 when you went into the draft, so you didn't gain anything at all. You finished as low as you possibly could, which has been the case many years for the Wizards. And when they wind up number one, yeah, John Wall was a really good player. Didn't get him to the conference finals. Kwame Brown was a bust, and on we go. This is again more rationalization from Will Dawkins on the odds.
When we came in, we knew there was a 50% chance that you're getting 5 or 6. So you're going into the lottery odds knowing that that's most likely where you're going to be. And it's a game of chance. But like you said, this rebuild that we're on, we're still at the beginning phases of it. So there will be more and more rewards at the end of the tunnel. But I think 6 is a reward for where we're at right now. And we'll be able to use it and make our team better.
So 2 years of being just horrendous. They were the second worst team in the league last year. They were the second worst team in the league this year. They had a total of, 38 wins, over 33 wins over the 2 years. And what he's telling you is we're in the beginning phases of the rebuild. So you're going to have to go through another year of this, and by not getting Cooper Flagg, it could be another year after that. Detroit was the worst team in the NBA last season. This year they made the playoffs. Dawkins is telling you beginning phases of the rebuild doesn't really matter that much, he says. Maybe that's rationalization, but doesn't really matter that much between 1 and 6. Could they move up if they see a player they like? He says yes.
Trading up, I think in every draft we always try to find the best player and then try to find a way to go get him. Someone that's going to fit into our walls and have every attribute that we're looking for. So for us, we've never been stagnant in any draft. I know it's only been 2 so far, but we'll look to move, balance, and do whatever's best for the organization. But we're very comfortable staying where we're at.
Well, the problem with trading up is they don't have any capital to do it other than draft picks. They don't have any players that anybody wants, unless, you can talk somebody into Alex Sarr or Koulibaly. I don't think that's going to entice anybody to move up. And are there players worth moving up for? Here's what's projected to still be there at number 6. Texas's Trey Johnson, Oklahoma's Jeremiah Fears. There's the teammate of Cooper Flagg, and he looked very good in the NCAA tournament, Con Knuppel. And then they're also talking about Derek Queen. Derek Queen would be a marketing move to some extent. I don't know how many more people would start showing up at Capital One Arena to see a bad team play, and what the general manager admits is the beginning phases of a rebuild. But there is that. You got to see them play this year a lot if you're a Maryland fan, and they played it into the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament, so there's interest in that. And then if they go by Bub Carrington, whose luck, by the way, was Bupkis last night. Thanks a lot, Bub. He's actually got some history with Derek Queen. They were neighbors in Baltimore, and they know each other. So maybe there's that. The last time the Wizards picked sixth, Jan Vesely played 3 years, averaged 3.6 points a game. One of the really bad picks that was made by Ernie Grunfeld in 2011. All right, to the Capitals, who are definitely on the brink right now. We've been saying for the last week, hey, you got to get Alex Ovechkin untracked. Got to get him going. Well, they did.
Right side, Strome has it. Right hash to Chikrin, edging into the slot. Gives it back to Strome along the right side. Hillen across to Ovechkin, and drive, he scores! Alex Ovechkin getting his first of the series, and it's a one-goal game. It's a 5-on-3 power play goal. It's 3-2 here in Game 4.
But that's as close as the Caps got. They gave up 2 more goals. They lose the game by a score of 5-2, and now they are at the proverbial point of backs against the wall. And yes, they took advantage of the 5-on-3 there. But if you watch the end of the first period, what a mess. At 2 power plays, only 1 shot on goal. In the 4-minute power play at the end of the period, they got the puck across the blue line once. Carolina had 2 shots that tested Logan Thompson twice, according to this recap here in the Post, and Washington missed the net on its only 2 attempts. I mean, just you could hear the frustration in John Walton's voice on the Caps radio network.
It is only 1 goal, but the Capitals are forcing a lot of stuff. Strome, bad pass, intercepted by Aho. 2-1 the other way. Robinson down low, a shot, and a save made by Thompson. A minute to go here in the first period. 1:23 left in the double minor to Martinook. And the Capitals' power play is absolutely nowhere.
Absolutely nowhere, which Spencer Carberry admitted after the game.
Well, I saw what everybody else in the room saw. It was not good. And so we made some adjustments, made some changes to personnel on it. But you can't, like, their penalty kill is excellent, best in the league, has been for the last, 5 years, call it. But it can't look like that. It cannot look like that.
No. So, what do? Tom Wilson on the ice for a lot of that 4-minute power play.
Yeah, those moments are huge in the playoffs. You got to find a way to score. Simple as that. So it's not good enough. We gotta step up in that moment, and it's a huge turning point in the game. Special teams can be a momentum builder, and as everybody knows, and we just got to find a way to pull the special teams our way a little bit.
So they play Game 5 on Thursday night at Capital One Arena. Things, get reversed. Eventually, things start to go your way. And even the Yankee-Red Sox series, which for many years, when you talk about rivalry, it was hammer and nail. Yankees were the hammer, Red Sox were the nail. But 2004, Red Sox break through. They come back from 3-0 and win the series and go on to win the World Series. Okay, that did happen. But the Capitals' history, and this is why Tony, at this time of year, was always very well known in the Post for writing the Choking Dog column, because 1987 against the New York Islanders, a series that finally ended like 2 a.m. on Easter Sunday, when they blew that 3-1 lead against the Islanders and lost that series in 87. Then 92 against Pittsburgh. It happened again against Pittsburgh in 1995. And these Alex Ovechkin Caps, they've done it. Even Wilson, a part of this too. They have also blown 3-1 series leads. 2010 to Montreal, when they won the President's Trophy that year as the best team in the league. And then 2015, 10 years ago, when they I guess Wilson wasn't a part of that, but 10 years ago against the New York Rangers, they blew a 3-1 lead. So maybe the tide turns. From what I'm able to gather, I'm far from a hockey expert, but from what I'm able to gather, watching people talk about this series and what the players say and what the coaches say, it could be just one thing that makes it turn. And they come back and they win on Thursday. Then you go back to Carolina. You find a way to win that, and then it all comes down to Game 7. Now, I've seen them do this before, that they have this comeback. They have a 2-game comeback, and then it gets down to Game 7, and they get blown out in Game 7. So this is kind of a typical May period for the Caps and the Wizards. Wizards wind up with no lottery luck, finish as low as they possibly can, and the Capitals, after a nice series against Montreal, get into another one where even though they have home ice, they don't get it done. And aside from one game where they won 3-1, they just haven't played all that well. Though they did have a good start last night, they just couldn't continue it. And they talked about the importance of scoring the first goal, which they did not. And they did catch up to an extent with the goal by Ovechkin to make it 3-2. But could not close, and just awful power play last night against a good team against the power play, but they just couldn't get it done. So it could be an early trip to the golf course. The old joke used to be, what's red, white, and blue and plays golf in May? It's the Washington Capitals, and maybe we'll see if things change this year and they can get it going again and maybe make it into June, but it doesn't look good at this point. All right, NBA stuff from last night. Boston Celtics, not only are they down against the Knicks 3-1, they may have lost their best player and may have even lost him, worst case scenario, for the entire season next year. We'll get to that, plus Giannis Antetekoumpo, who has said, yes, I'm open to exploring options. This is the way it works in the NBA these days. I'm open to exploring options, and we'll just lay out the red carpet for you. Whatever happened to contracts? Whatever happened to rights? Whatever happened to, hey, you play for us or you don't play for anybody until you hit free agency? It's not the way it works anymore. We'll get to Tony and Mike's thoughts on that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Some NBA stuff here. We will get to what Pablo Torre said yesterday on the Dominique Foxworth Show about Bill Belichick and his coaching future at North Carolina shortly. Jason Tatum, I'm sure you're aware of this by now, but Jason Tatum, the Celtics, had a big game last night at 42 points and looked like the Celtics were going to even things up against the Knicks. And then he suffered a non-contact injury to his ankle, and he grabbed the back of his ankle. They are calling this a lower body injury a la hockey, but this appears to be, I could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong about this, but if this is an Achilles tear, this is not only going to cost him the rest of this season, but could cost him all of next year as well. And they have invested a lot of money in two players between Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. They're both $300 million players. And it worked out well last year as they won the NBA championship. And it looked like they had a good shot to win it again this year. And now they're down 3-1 to the Knicks. They're going home, but they're down 3-1, and you're possibly going to have to play without your best player the rest of the way. That's bad. And on top of everything else, this is the league now that you've invested this much money in a player, and you may not have him for an entire next season. That's in play. Now, maybe the Celtics get into the lottery because of that, and the ping-pong balls bounce properly like the Mavericks, and they wind up with a generational talent coming out of college next year, whoever that might be. Maybe it all works out that way for them. But I just look at these injuries that happen, and, I watch NBA basketball for 50 years, and Donovan Mitchell, one of the best player on the Cavaliers, on the best team in the East, he may not be able to play because of an ankle injury. Now, it's apparently not an Achilles tear, which it looks like it is for Jason Tatum. But these guys, when I was going to cover NBA games when I was in college. I go back to 1976. Mark Splaver was the PR director for the Washington Bullets at the time. I was going to American University. And Splaver had been the sports information director at AU. So he was really nice to us. And when they had extra seats at the press table, they would give it to us at the radio station, the campus radio station. He was great about this. And so I saw a lot of NBA, and I would get there early. You didn't see guys going through all these stretching bands and all these, trainers around them making sure that they stretch this muscle and stretch that muscle. No, they just get out on the court, hoist up a few shots, jog into the locker room, start the game. It just didn't seem like we had as many injuries. Now it's injuries all over the place. It's superstars going down. On top of everything else, the playoffs were not there weren't as many games, let's put it that way. If you go way back to like the 60s and even the early 70s, the season would end in April. The championship would be played in April. They'd get out of the way for baseball. Well, now it goes into June. And then also, same thing with other sports. You hear this in baseball too, that athletes specialize too much. They put too much strain on the muscles that they need just for that sport. Could be, but this is a mess right now for the Boston Celtics, and it looked like everything was lining up perfectly for them, and now they may have lost their best player. It's crazy. I mean, I kind of like to see the Knicks go this far. It's been a long time since they made it. This 2000 was the last time they were in the NBA Finals, 25 years. But this is really I think a symptom of the way that athletes train for their sport, the way they do it, and all the stretching and all the resistance bands and all the other stuff that they use doesn't seem to be doing a lot of good. Remember that there was a Hard Knocks, got to be 5 years ago. It was the Cleveland Browns, and there was an assistant coach who was the offensive line coach who had this big belly. And they mic'd him up because he was pretty funny. And, when he would have players go through, like, reps, every time he'd shout out a rep, his belly would, like, rise up a little bit. It was funny. And they mic'd him up, and he was saying, and he had this, like, Boston accent, so it sounded even funnier. We won World War II. We didn't do any stretching then. These guys are stretching here, stretching there. I don't understand it. And I don't understand what's happening to all these injuries in the NBA, but all this preventative stretching and all the other things that they do with individual trainers and the diets and all that. Guys were eating like hamburgers on the road before. They get injuries all the time. Now they're always hurt. Everybody's hurt. So is what it is. All right. This is also something that's different in that we used to have superstars who were on particular teams. And there really wasn't a way out unless they hit free agency. But thanks to the Larry Bird rule, a team could pay a player more than other teams to keep them. That's something that Red Auerbach came up with. Like, I know we got a salary cap, but I shouldn't be penalized in losing my best player because of it. Larry Bird hits the open market, and he's going to be paid $1 gazillion. So you got to be able to go over the cap to protect your own players. So teams did that, and money mattered then. Guys weren't making $40 million a year. They were making $2 and $3 million a year. So players stayed. And guys like Karl Malone and John Stockton, they stayed forever together in Utah, made it to the finals a few times, but never won the NBA championship. And now it's like, oh, okay. And in the case of Giannis Antetekoumpo, he's already won one, but he's like, yeah, doesn't look like I'm going to be able to win one with Milwaukee in the next few years, so I'm going to explore my options to get out. And the way it works now is they just explore where they want to go and who they want to take with them, and it happens. Like, I'd like to go to Team X, okay, and I'd like to have player Y. Great, we're going to send you to Team X, and we're going to give you player Y there. And this is also the fallout from what happened 15 years ago with LeBron James and the decision that he went to a team that was being assembled that had, two great players on it, and he joined up, and he was saying, oh, I don't want to be 30 years old with a bad knee without a title. Well, that's the way it used to work. It used to be that, but it's not that way anymore. So Giannis has sent the smoke signals. Yes, I'm willing to leave after being loyal to Milwaukee. I'd like to explore options. Tony and Mike on that last night on PTI.
Wilbon, what does that open-mindedness to playing for another franchise say to you?
Tony, it's like the first sort of soft trade demand. I shouldn't use the word demand because if it's soft, it's not a demand. We've known this. When the Milwaukee Bucks went out as they went out, and they've gone out, in 22, 23, and 24, and 25, they've gone out early. They weren't even a factor, even though it looked like the building of the team and the acquisition of Dame Lillard and all these things. Doc Rivers going to coach here. All these things looked like they were building toward Milwaukee having another real shot at a second championship. They won one in 21. And that's not the case. So given that they have no real assets to throw around to change the team, which is incredibly old by today's NBA standards, Giannis is going to have to go somewhere else to threaten to win. And so the where becomes the next guessing game, and this will consume people like other superstars and other summers have when they're going to go someplace. Where is KD going to go? Where's LeBron going to go? So that now will be the case with Giannis. It's understood. It's the way business operates in the NBA now. And you can start picking spots. You and I will start in future days. We won't get into it maybe necessarily as much right now. But where will Giannis land? Who has the draft capital to both get him, a trade capital to get him, and contend? Keep enough people to contend. San Antonio Spurs would be my landing spot if they don't win the lottery tonight. So this is going to fascinate people now, Tone, for the next few weeks.
I think this is a really big story. I think it's a bigger story than any of the playoff series right now because, there are championships in the offing here. This guy, Antetokoumpo, is one of two players right now with MVP credentials and a championship who are in their prime. Antetokoumpo and Jokic, they are in their prime. LeBron and Steph Curry and Kevin Durant are past their primes. Tatum doesn't have an MVP. Embiid is never well, and Luka hasn't won anything. So where this guy lands is of enormous consequence. I mean, yes. it really is. It reminds me of when Kareem said, I want to get out of Milwaukee and you need to trade me. And when Wilt said, you've got to trade me. This is a really big deal. Both those guys ended up in L.A. So I'm going to start right now with the Los Angeles Lakers. And I'm going to say they're always in the mix, and the league would probably want him in a place like Los Angeles. I'm going to say the Celtics are involved. I'm going to echo what you said and say that San Antonio is involved. And it's possible to me, and I don't know how much Giannis Antetokoumpo likes the Midwest, but if he does, then Cleveland and Detroit and Indiana might be involved in this. Yes, it is a guessing game, Mike, but his competence... let me ask you this. That lottery is tonight. If you won the first pick, would you trade it even up for Giannis Antetokoumpo? Because
depends on who I am. Depends on who I am, Tony, and what I think I have. So, like Philadelphia. Suppose Philadelphia wins. Are they better served with having Giannis out there and keeping Embiid and everything else they have? Maxey, and are they better, Paul George? Or... listen, Cooper Flagg's going to be a hard person to deal away at 19 years old or 18. He's not even 19 yet. But the guessing game begins, and it begins tonight, Tony. You're absolutely right about that.
And that was obviously before the draft lottery last night on PTI, and the Dallas Mavericks won. Now, that's a thought. You've got older players now, and Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis. Would you want to add a player? Well, of course, you'd want to add a player like Giannis Antetokoumpo. How does he fit with them? I don't know. Is Cooper Flagg the upside higher? Could he be in a year on the level of Giannis? Probably not. But there are a lot of things to consider in that. But yeah, that might be a thought, and that might be a great thing for Milwaukee, a team that's rebuilding again, and then you get Cooper Flagg. So that's in play there. Now, let me just a couple things on what Tony said about the two trades that the Lakers made for arguably the two best centers in NBA history. You could make that case, and Shaq as well. Although I think Shaq was a free agent when he went from Orlando to the Lakers. But let's start with the case of Wilt. And Wilt was late prime when that trade was made. He was 10 years into the league. Now Wilt kept himself in incredible shape, and he was one of the strongest guys to play any sport. So he could have played longer. He was done in his mid-30s. He probably could have played another 3 or 4 years if he wanted to. But Wilt was a part of the 1966-67 Philadelphia 76ers. He had started his career with the Philadelphia Warriors. They moved to San Francisco. He was with them not that long, maybe a year and a half, and then he was traded back to Philadelphia, where he was from the Warriors, and he went there to help to put together one of the great teams in NBA history. That 66-67 team broke the streak of the Boston Celtics, who had won 8 straight championships, beat them in the Eastern Conference Finals, and then went on to win the NBA championship that year. And if you look at that team with Billy Cunningham and Hal Greer and some of the other talent that they have, and along with Wilt, they are considered in the conversation for the best team of all time. 1 year later, Celtics are back. They win the championship. Wilt wants out. Now, I was told this by Jack Ramsey, not to drop names, but I did ask Jack Ramsey directly this on the air when I was with ESPN about why he traded Wilt Chamberlain to the Los Angeles Lakers in 1968. He was the GM of the Sixers at the time, and he said, Wilt said, if you don't trade me to the Lakers, specifically the Lakers, I'm going to jump to the ABA. Now, I'm not sure if the ABA had a team at that point, but if Wilt wanted to go to the ABA in 1968, they would have put a team in Los Angeles for him. And he built that big mansion, that famous big mansion that was in Life magazine with the big spread of the enormous bed and the skylight and the whole deal. He wanted to be at that place. That's where he wanted to live. That's where he wanted to play. So Ramsey had no option. He either trades him to the Lakers to get what he could, and it wasn't much. He traded him to the Lakers, and then they finally won the championship. He got hurt as either first or second year, and then they lost to the Celtics in '69. 1970, Knicks beat him in the finals, and then '72 was the year that they finally won the championship. That was Wilt engineering that trade specifically to the Lakers. The Kareem trade from Milwaukee to the Lakers, again, can't get equal value, and he was in his prime. He'd only been in the league about 6 years then. He won 1 championship with the Bucks, and he wanted out, and I'm sure he wanted to go to the Lakers because he had played college basketball at UCLA, but I'm not sure why it necessarily happened. Maybe he had a no-trade clause, and he could turn down anything he didn't want. I don't know how that worked, but they wound up trading him to the Lakers, and I don't think made the playoffs the first year, and kind of struggled until Magic Johnson got there in 1977. So it took a couple of years for them to get going, or 79 was when he came to the Lakers as their number 1 draft pick. So it was a little bit different on the two of them, and I think it's interesting to point out. But nowadays, it's you go where you want to go. Giannis says, I want that team. Fine, they make a deal with that team, and that team makes a deal to bring in the player he wants to play with. Players run the league. I liked Adam Silver at the beginning, but he has totally turned this league over to the players. And maybe the television ratings are bearing it out that it's worth it for him, but it certainly is not anything like even other sports. Certainly not like the NFL. Your lot is cast, it should be, with who drafts you. And if you sign a contract to stay, you honor the contract unless you play it out, and then you become a free agent. He's a guy who's got the big contract, yet he can go where he wants to go. It's just a little nuts. A couple of other quick things from the NBA, or one other thing I should say. Michael Jordan is going to join NBC as a contributor. And he put out a statement. He said, I'm so excited to see the NBA back on NBC. The NBA on NBC was a meaningful part of my career. They carried all 6 of his championships with the Bulls. Jordan has never done this before. We've seen Magic Johnson do it with ESPN. Charles Barkley, of course, has had a long run with TNT and now is going to be a part of ESPN as well. So I'm not really sure why he's doing it. He's certainly not doing it for the money. He's got plenty of money, and he seems to like his private life. My guess is you're not going to see him sitting on the set on NBC. I don't think even though he's got a private plane, I don't think he's going to be flying from Florida, where I think he spends most of the year now, to New York to do this. I think it's even possible that we're going to see Michael Jordan on Zoom or FaceTime from the golf course a lot. I just don't see him making a commitment like that. It just doesn't make sense. Part 2 of this, and this might be fun to keep an eye on, although they won't be working together with Charles Barkley. At one time, Jordan and Barkley were great friends, the best of friends. And there was a breaking because of Michael Jordan's ego, where Charles Barkley correctly said, as Michael Jordan was the owner of the Charlotte Hornets, he correctly said that Michael shouldn't be listening to everybody around him and should get good advice instead of getting it from people who are just yes men. And to this day, I believe they haven't spoken other than Jordan calling him to cuss him out. And Barkley has stood his ground, and I think he's right to do so. But NBA style, and boy, you got to be old to remember this because this is almost 50 years ago, could there be a Jerry Lewis, Dean Martin kind of reunion in an NBA setting, whether they're both there to cover a championship series or however it works? I mean, could we get them together? That would make great TV. To this day, I remember the Jerry Lewis Labor Day Telethon, 1976. Frank Sinatra made it happen. Dean Martin comes on and gives Jerry a hug. And Jerry says, "You working?" Because, they had a partnership and they broke off and didn't speak for probably 30 years. So, why not? Why not? Could that happen? Who knows? But I just don't see Jordan as a regular member of the panel. I don't think that's going to happen. And what does he say? I think Jordan looks at every player in the league right now and goes, sucks. Yeah, I could take him. I'm in my 50s. I could take him. I think that's, or maybe he's 60 now. Who knows? But no, I don't see him. I don't see him as a heavy participant in NBA coverage. All right, Pablo Torre, who's done his latest podcast. Pablo Torre finds out, and he's said a lot of things about Bill Belichick after talking to, he says, 11 people connected to the North Carolina football program, that Jordan Hudson, the 24-year-old girlfriend, has been banned from the facility. The school says that's not so. She hasn't been banned, but she is not an employee of the facility. But Torre has gone a step further with this, and it's something that I have speculated on as well. He's got some information that I don't have, and that's why this makes this a lot more impactful. But this is what he said yesterday on the Dominic Foxworth show about where this is going now with Bill Belichick.
What happens next for Coach Belichick? Do you think that he makes it to week 1? Is it getting that contentious over there?
I think there's a chance, an absolutely real chance, that he doesn't. And the reason I say that is because even before the Jordan Hudson thing became as public, even before it went from messy backstage to now obviously messy everywhere, the date that matters the most is June 1st. So when this contract was reported, Dominique, when the terms of Belichick's Carolina contract that made him the highest paid public employee in the state were announced, everybody who follows contractual language pointed out that on June 1st, the buyout of Bill Belichick goes from $10 million to $1 million if Bill wanted the escape hatch, right? So if he wanted out, suddenly it was very interesting that the amount got 10 times less after June 1st. And so the question everybody is asking is, are things so dysfunctional behind the scenes when it comes to the power struggle, when it comes to what they are telling Bill to do? Don't have Jordan around anymore. Stop behaving in the way that you have. Basically telling him for the first time, really, right, that you're an employee and not the boss of this building in the way that he may have been assuming he would be. Then there is the ability for him to get out of it. And that's before you even consider the fact that stuff is so crazy when it comes to how his family feels, how the people around the school feel, that there's this larger, hey, so Coach met this woman when she was 19 years old on an airplane, and now she's kind of running his public image as his girlfriend. Is this something that's sustainable? Right? Is that fireable? What does he have to do to get fired? These are all active questions.
Yeah, and I wonder if the family is involved in this as well. The daughter-in-law has already said something about it that, whatever it was not a positive comment. And I wonder if the family behind the scenes is talking to the people at North Carolina and saying, this is going in a really bad direction. And if we roll out the season and he loses his first couple of games, they open against TCU, they're not opening against a cupcake, that things could get really ugly. And the legacy of a man who is going to be in the Football Hall of Fame, who has more Super Bowl championships than anybody, and it's still in play, although the way things are going, I don't think there's any chance he gets back in the NFL. But if he does, he needs only 15 wins to become the winningest coach of all time, which can be accomplished in a couple of years. But he's 73 years old. The contract now, this is the part that I'm still fuzzy on and isn't answered there. It's a $1 million buyout if Belichick wants to get out of it. He may go to them or they may go to him, and it may work out in a way that, hey, if you just walk away, there's no money owed by anybody here. It's all good. But he signed a 5-year, $50 million contract in January. 5 years, $50 million. I believe the way this works is if North Carolina goes, oh, boy, this Jordan Hudson thing, this has really turned into a mess, and we are just not going to be able to do this as a university. Can a university that size with that kind of endowment, can they eat $50 million? I guess they can, but they certainly don't want to do that. And would they get to the point where they go, yeah, this just doesn't work out. Bill, sorry, here's $50 million, be on your way. Or you're still under contract to the school, and if you want to take another job, that's another thing that could happen here. Okay, we're going to pay out the contract. We're going to pay you if you don't coach next year. It's $10 million, fine. But if you want to go someplace, it's $1 million to buy your way out of it after June 1st. So we're still a couple of weeks out from that. So that's something to keep an eye on where this goes. But this has been one thing after another, including, and this is something that Torrey didn't put in the podcast, but he was on the Dan Le Batard show yesterday. And you've probably seen this video. This came out months and months ago before the Jordan Hudson thing became a firestorm, which really ignited 2 weeks ago when he was on CBS Sunday Morning and she was seen jumping into the interview when Belichick was asked how they met. Don't answer that. Don't answer that. And it really got to the point where, whoa, look at this. You remember the video that surfaced of Belichick naked, or not naked, but without a shirt on, looking like a bear foraging for food outside of somebody's door? And it was from a ringtone camera, one of those cameras that a lot of people have installed in their house. I mean, is it possible that she leaked this video? It would seem that only the person who had the ringtone camera would have the access to the video. Is it possible that Jordan Hudson leaked this out in kind of a controlling way for Bill Belichick? Now, Belichick is not a warm and fuzzy guy, but whenever you see the two of them together, any of the affection that's coming is coming from Jordan Hudson. You see her looking at him the way she does, the way she stands next to him in seductive poses. He smiles and everything, but, could she say, hey, I'm running your business here, and if you want to have a relation, or if you break it off with me, let's put it that way. I mean, could this be, that kind of a thing that, she's so interested in, and she's very aggressive. She's built up a $8 million real estate portfolio, presumably with his backing on that, his co-signing on the loans, those things, those have all got to be in play. And could she say, I'll hang you out to dry if you dump me? I mean, we all saw Glenn Close in the 80s, right? That's something that could be going on here. And the family has to be worried about this, I would think. I would think that this is of great concern. And we're really just getting started with this. Once the football season starts, we're still away from that enough that, if he gets out now, things will kind of die down by the time we get to late August. But there's enough people on the staff that could take over the program. They got the players there. They're not necessarily going to leave now. So they could put together a team that would not be just an incredible embarrassment to the university. This is the school that's best known for Dean Smith, who had a squeaky clean reputation. I mean, Dean Smith is, he's the one that is held up in the highest of esteem. Do you want to bring in a football coach who was in that, not necessarily, in that category, because we did have Deflategate and we did have Spygate and things like that. But, I mean, North Carolina as a university does not want this mess that seemingly is spilling out day by day. And I agree with Pablo. I think it's entirely possible he never coaches a game there. I think that's very much in play. All right, coming up, more reaction to the Caps' loss last night, and Al Michaels on his career as he begins at 80, what might be his final year doing NFL games, but maybe not. Stay with us. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. No, this is such a bad morning after for DC sports that it really shouldn't be a Tuesday. We should just make it a Monday. That's how bad it is. And the rain is quite appropriate because this is a rough night. The worst that the Wizards could finish in the lottery was 6th. They finished 6th. The Capitals couldn't fall behind. They fell behind. They lost badly in Carolina, 5-2. They're on the brink. And even the Nationals try to break a 5-game losing streak, 9th inning comeback last night in Atlanta to tie the game, only to be walked off in the game 4-3. They have their longest losing streak of the season, longest losing streak, as a matter of fact, in a couple of years now. So there's not much good to say about DC sports this morning. Does it feel as bad as, say, when the Redskins lost to the Raiders 38-9 in Super Bowl 18? Probably not. Does it feel as bad as, well, after this year, after they got their doors blown off against the Philadelphia Eagles in the playoffs? Does it feel as bad as that? Again, I think in both cases, although they were defending champs when they lost to the Raiders in Super Bowl 18 and the expectations were high, I think when they got clobbered by the Eagles, although, we got all excited about the possibility of a Super Bowl, it really wasn't realistic with a first-year team, first-year coaching staff, first-year quarterback as good as he was, all those things. So there's that. And this is just really springtime in Washington, right? I mean, how many years have we seen the Wizards in the lottery and the balls don't bounce right and they wind up as low as they can possibly go? This goes back a long ways. And when the balls do bounce right, Kwame Brown, bust. And really, if you look at that draft, they could have taken Pau Gasol, and maybe with this team they would have been pretty good, but they weren't going to become championship contenders with him. They needed other pieces around him, and Michael Jordan was going to be doing the picking. And, well, we saw Michael Jordan as Desk Jordan, not very successful, and as a player, they won 37 games each of the 2 years, but didn't make the playoffs either one. So there's that. And then, they took the best player in 2010 and John Wall 15 years ago, but John Wall wasn't good enough to get him to the conference finals. So here they are, once again, finishing 6th. Now, one thing that Will Dawkins said, and I think that this is something that that you have to really listen to carefully, is that, he would have liked to have had the first pick for sure and would have liked to have finished higher than 6th. But he also said this last night.
When we came in, we knew there was a 50% chance that you're getting 5 or 6. So you're going into the lottery odds knowing that that's most likely where you're going to be. And it's a game of chance. But like you said, this rebuild that we're on, we're still at the beginning phases of it. So there will be more and more rewards at the end of the tunnel. But I think 6 is a reward for where we're at right now. And we'll be able to use it and make our team better.
Well, beginning phases of the rebuild, we've had 2 years of being just an embarrassment, a non-competitive team in Washington, where you win 15 games this year. What'd you win the year before? 14 games. That's not something people want to see. And Detroit, which was the worst team in the league last year, was a pretty good team this year, made the playoffs. So he's telling you early phases of the rebuild that even if they get the number 1 pick, it's still going to be another year like this. how many more years are they going to have to do this? Is this going to be 3 more years of this? I guess in the NBA, attendance is not that important to them. It's the television contract that they have, although they do have local TV. I can't imagine they're getting any kind of ratings on Monumental. That's not a slap at the people who do the games. It's just the team is unwatchable. It's hard. Chris Miller does an excellent job, but they're not good. They're not good to watch. So not a lot of hope out of that. And look at the Mavericks, and they had never won the lottery before. It's kind of ironic when you think about this. I was in Dallas in the early '80s. As a matter of fact, Rolando Blackman, who did the interview after the pick was made and talked about how important it was with the organization. I don't know what his job is, but he was with the team at the time. This was again 81 to 83 when I was in Dallas. So the 2 years with the Mavericks. First year they were an expansion team, 80-81. They were the worst team in the league. In those days, it was just a coin flip with the second worst team. They got the number 1 pick. They wound up with Mark Aguirre. Detroit at 2 made the right move, and Isaiah Thomas should have made that move. But whatever. Aguirre was a pretty good player. And they had Blackman, who they had selected also in that draft, I think the same draft, out of Kansas State. He was a good player. And they were, building a team. But Norm Sanju, who was the general manager, was doing something very smart at the time, because the Cleveland Cavaliers had an idiot of an owner named Ted Stepien. And Ted Stepien thought that people would come out to see his team if they were competitive. So he was trading away first-round draft picks. I think he traded away 4 straight first-round draft picks in order to get veteran players. So Norm Sanju was getting veteran players from other teams, and he was trading them to Norm Sanju for top draft picks in hopes that in 1985 that he would be able to get Patrick Ewing and transform the franchise. And people knew in those days that Ewing was going to stay 4 years. It wasn't like it is now, or even in the period of time when you could go right from high school. I think Ewing might have been one of those players who was good enough to do that. But he thought he'd get Ewing in 85. Problem is, the league made a change. 1, you couldn't trade away consecutive number 1 picks. And 2, they came up with the draft lottery. And so the Cleveland Cavaliers finished just out of the lottery. They were good enough to make the playoffs and be eliminated in the first round. I think it was, I forget who it was, but they were maybe Indiana. I think they were knocked out by Indiana. And so instead of being in the lottery, the Dallas Mavericks picked 8th, and they took Detlef Schrempf, who was a pretty good player. But, in figuring how they could get, the pick that they wanted and shrewdly trading veterans to a stupid owner who was trading away top picks, it didn't work out that way. So here they are, Wizards picking number 6. We'll see who it is. Maybe it's Derek Queen of Maryland. That'll be a little bit of a bump for the fan base that surely is really, really disappointed about this and should be. As for the Capitals, as you heard Spencer Carberry say the other day, a good start was really what they needed. And, in fact, he got it last night in Carolina.
We looked excellent to start that hockey game. Fast, pucks were going to good spots, execution was spot on, but then you have a shift or 2 shifts where you fail to exit the zone. You just were not able to get that puck past the blue line. You don't have to make a play. It just has to get past that blue line, and it doesn't, and now look out. And so those are key plays in tight series that we have to learn, and guys have to learn that it just cannot happen when you get to this point in the playoffs with the best 8 teams in the National Hockey League. It just can't happen.
And this seems like a simple thing, but I remember when we used to do segments with Alan May, who's on Monumental, is excellent. Alan May, former player, has done a lot of color commentary this year with Craig Laughlin out with the health issues. He's excellent. And I remember, when we used to talk to Alan May about the problems with the Caps, he says, just shoot the damn puck. Just shoot the puck. And so you look at the numbers again, and once again, the Capitals were badly outshot in this game. Carolina, 37 shots on goal. Capitals, 21. And even worse, with 2 power play opportunities, including a 4-minute power play to end the first period, Capitals got 1 shot on goal. So, coach, more shots, right?
I don't think that's an overriding theme, but I would agree at certain points we need to do a better job of shooting the puck when we get into some spots, for sure. I don't think it's a massive issue, but there have been times where I've thought through this series is shoot the puck in my head, which I'm sure maybe you have as well. So there's that. And then you got to get your shot through too, right? Like we get a ton of shots blocked that those are good situations. Like you got to find a way to get that puck through.
And they have been the best penalty kill team in the league, to be fair, Carolina. So there's that. Alex Ovechkin has been part of two teams that blew 3-1 leads, including the team in 2010 when they won the President's Trophy as with the best record in the league and blew it against Montreal. He has never come back from a 3-1 series deficit. He did score last night. Finally, got his first points of the series, getting a goal, first point. And he's trying to make it seem like okay, we're still in this.
If you look at the last game and this game, we have opportunities to get the lead right away, and but we just have to find a way to score a goal. It's obviously he's feeling it right now, and but we have to find dirty goals. Rebound, redirect. It's we're going to take a deep breath, series not over, and we just have to come back here.
All right, a couple things from Tom Wilson about the playoffs being different than the regular season.
It's playoff hockey. I think it's just being as consistent as possible, and when they are pushing, find a way to make some plays, find a way to get the puck out of our end, get down there and generate some momentum. So it's going to have to be, all four lines, one after another, pushing, and we're going to have to slowly try and push them out of this series. Obviously, our backs are against the wall, and next game's the biggest game, and start with the first period and go from there. It's not going to be easy. They're a hard-working team, but, we're going to have some fight here. We're going to go out there and do our best and leave it all out there and see what happens.
All right. And one more thing from Wilson, again, how the playoffs are different.
I think in the playoffs, no matter what the score is in the series, the next game's huge, so it's got to be our focus and clean some stuff up and turn the tides a little and get a big win on home ice and go from there.
Yeah, turning the tides 5 times in the 50-year history of the team, they have blown a 3-1 series lead. Tides turn. So if it happens, this is the way it's got to play out as they play the next game coming up on Thursday. That'll be Thursday at 7 o'clock at home against Carolina. If they win that, they would go to Carolina on Saturday, and if they find a way to win that, they would have a chance to win the series on Monday night in 7. But the way this is going, it just doesn't seem like it's the cards. They don't have the cards to throw out a familiar phrase from the past few months here. So I what I've seen, but again, the randomness of hockey, one thing turns here and you get a break there, and who knows where it goes. I got Al Michaels' stuff coming up. He was on the podcast that is done by Dan Lebitard. It's called South Beach Conversations, and Dan, a very good interviewer, and he talks to Al, who is 80 years old, and I think is going into the last year of his contract with Prime. He is going to continue to do Thursday night football. He's gotten a lot of criticism lately, not enough enthusiasm, and we'll see how long he goes after that. I don't know if they would renew him. We'll see. I think some of the criticism will play a factor in that. He's basically told everybody to shove it on that. But at 80 years old, does he have the juice to still give you the kind of performance that warrants a contract that pays him like $1 million a game or something like that? So we'll get to the conversation he had. I just want to mention that Trey Hendrickson is kind of in limbo here with the Cincinnati Bengals. He has a year left on his contract, but he said that he's had no communication since the draft, April 26th. Great pass rusher. He had 17.5 sacks last year, very much in his prime. In fact, every year he's been in the league since 2021, he has produced 14 sacks in 2021, 8 sacks in 2022, 17.5 the last 2 years. Cincinnati has paid their offensive guys. They're paying Joe Burrow. They're paying his receivers. Hendrickson, Pro Bowl player, 4 years, first-team All-Pro last year, second in Defensive Player of the Year voting. I wonder if the if the Commanders have their eye on him. Adam Peters didn't do a whole lot to address the pass rush in the draft. Would it be possible that they're looking at this with cap room, the money to sign him long term, and maybe, a lot of the draft capital they traded away has already gone with this draft? I don't think they've given away too much in the future. Would they be willing to do that? Because, again, you're in a position with this team, with Jaden Daniels, especially the next 2 years, making $6.5 million a year, that you have a franchise quarterback on a rookie deal. You got to go for it. And, Peters isn't going to go running up to try and make this trade. This isn't the old days where Dan Snyder couldn't wait to get a player like this and would have given up everything. He might have traded Jaden Daniels to get him. Who knows? I mean, as crazy as things were. So maybe Adam Peters is looking at this and saying, okay, let's bide our time. Let's see how it plays out. But we don't think Cincinnati is going to satisfy him. We don't think they're going to do it. So we'll just wait. And when the time is right, we would make a trade for Trey Hendrickson. I think it's entirely in play. I think that's very much a possibility for this team. Would not be shocked. I mean, it would be great if it happens. But all that stuff about Myles Garrett, and then he re-signs with Cleveland. I don't see it playing out that way with Trey Hendrickson. Is he quite as good as Myles? No, Myles Garrett. No, but he's damn good. 17.5 sacks each of the last 2 years. Anyway, that does it for me. Bram is coming up next. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.